There's a cute little dog peeing in our yard. I don't see a human. Hi. Oh, okay. Hi everyone, welcome back to Too Cool for Middle School. I thought we would just do a little check-in today, kind of like a catch-up video. It's been a while since I've been able to, just talk about the school year and make a video. But I also wanted to talk about two projects. One is more of a project, one is more of just like an assignment that I did with my 6th grade ancient history classes that both worked really well. So I just wanted to share those with you today. This is my 4th or 5th year of teaching 6th grade ancient history, and it's taken me a while to kind of understand what to emphasize and what to kind of just skim over and what's important to know. So I thought I would share that with you today. I can hear Mariah crying in the background. It is totally her nap time. She's overtired, so I put her down for a nap. You can see her tears on my shirt here. I was holding her while she cried, and then I put her down for a nap. So I still have tear stains on my t-shirt here. We're all just a little worn out by the weekend. I posted this on Instagram yesterday, but I didn't realize until yesterday. I just didn't do the calculations in my head, but I teach 35 classes a week. I'm teaching 7 periods this year, so it's 35 classes a week. So that's why I'm so tired. Who does that? Almost nobody. Some professors teach 4 classes a week. So I'm teaching 6th grade ancient history, which is really fun. I have 2 periods of that. Ooh, I forgot to turn on the ring light. Mariah Carey would be so disappointed in me. There we go. Okay, so I have my 6th grade ancient history classes, and then I have 4 periods of 7th grade English, which is really fun, and I haven't made much content about that. I need to do some YouTube videos just about our 7th grade English content, although we did just finish the media literacy unit, and I do have a video about the resources that we use for that. So that's on my channel. And then I'm teaching 8th grade English again, which I hadn't done for the past couple years, but now I'm back to it. And we just did our culture and belonging unit, which is really great. I do have a lot of YouTube videos about the 8th grade English content, and now we're in our thrill of horror unit, which is really fun. And we just got done with the monkey's paw, which I absolutely love. I think I have the coolest monkey's paw unit ever. We just do some really cool post-colonial critique of this classic story, but that story doesn't make any sense without an understanding of England and India and the relationship between the two. And the monkey's paw comes from India and comes back to England. So I have a whole video on that. But anyways, yeah, it's just been a busy year so far. We're a quarter of the way through. We just finished quarter 1, and then I have my own kids. Jensen's in 2nd grade now, which is really fun. I love 2nd grade. I love 2nd graders. He really has his own interests and everything. He's just he's self-sufficient in a lot of ways, but he also loves, telling me about all the things he's interested in and hanging out and stuff. So 2nd grade is a really fun age. And then Mariah's a 1.5 years. So besides fighting nap time, which I think she finally gave in. I think it sounds like she fell asleep now. She just always cries for a few minutes in the afternoon naps. She wants to stay up and hang out with everybody. But she's also at a really fun age. A year ago, when she was only more 6 months, 8 months or whatever, and I was back at work, that was really hard because a baby under 1, they are just not self-sufficient at all. You have to come home from work and just take care of them practically every minute until they go to bed. And so that was really draining. But this year, she's a little more self-sufficient, and she's just super fun. She's really hilarious. She'll run up to you and go huggy huggy and hug you around your legs. And she loves to clear her dishes. She's so clean. She picks up all her own dishes and throws away the trash and brings her dishes to the counter, and she claps for herself, and she's just so cute and so funny. So this year is easier than last year in that sense, but at work it's harder because I teach 7 classes back to back to back to back to back, and I'm prepping for 3 different completely different courses. So that's just a lot. So that's why I haven't been as active on like YouTube and stuff. But I have all these really great lessons that I've created, and I'm trying to get them all on Teachers Pay Teachers because it's stuff that is really hard to teach, I think. So for 6th grade, ancient history. We started like at the beginning of the world because kids do have a lot of questions about like the beginning of time. So we just have a few videos that we watch. Like there's one that shows like a football field kind of metaphor of like how old the earth is and how young human history is. And so we just kind of do that to get like an overview. And then I don't go super into like the Homo sapiens versus the Neanderthals versus, you know, like all these different scientific categories. But we do talk about the difference between the Paleolithic age and the Neolithic age. In our textbook, they also mention like the Mesolithic age. And you know what? We're not gonna do that, okay? We're just gonna break this down into 2 different categories and just see the change between the 2. These are 6th graders. Like we do ancient history in 6th grade, and kind of later on when we get to the empires, it's pretty fun and like developmentally appropriate, but like the science of the Ice Age and the Stone Age and all these different things is really difficult for 6th graders who, for one thing, this is kind of their first time having a dedicated history class. So they're adjusting to that anyway. And then just the way that my classes have panned out this year, in one of my classes, I have so many brand new to the US students who hardly speak any English. I mean, almost nothing. So to try to teach them Fertile Crescent, ancient Mesopotamia, Paleolithic, Neolithic, like, no. So I have been using Google Meet as like a translation service. So I do turn on a Google Meet that they can enter through the companion mode. You can kind of like Google other videos about all of this, but I'm sure there's stuff on YouTube, but they enter through companion mode, and I have a link on our Google Classroom, and they get in, and everything that I say has closed captions, and they can translate those in real time to whatever their language is. Mandarin, Japanese, Spanish. I have those 3 languages in this class. Plus the other half of the kids are just, you know, in a normal class. So this is not like a Sedai class or anything like that. This is just like the way that it broke down. This is just who is in this period. So everybody else doesn't need the Google Meet. They can understand my instructions when I'm speaking in English, but everybody else can just read the closed captions if they so choose. It is there as an option, although a lot of them just kind of like ignore it. So that's fun. I mean, these are still 11-year-olds, so. So anyway, I'm trying to give them all the resources possible so that they can just like access the content. And then we're not getting super into the weeds with this content, especially like Paleolithic age and Neolithic age. It's not necessary. Like we do read through it, but we read the textbook with a purpose. We are looking for the differences between the Paleolithic age and the Neolithic age. Okay, I'm pulling up this resource right now. But like I don't do like Cornell notes with 11-year-olds who are reading about the old Stone Age. Like we're just looking for specific information so that we can do a specific task with that information. So for this resource that I posted on Teachers Pay Teachers, that's the extent of the note taking. So note the differences between the Paleolithic age and the Neolithic age, because even that, like if you ask an adult right now, they might not remember the difference between those 2 words. They were super, super different ages, like historical ages, eras, if you will. But like those words just don't mean a whole lot until you put like some images with them or like understand the difference between the 2. So again, as we're reading the textbook, we're just noting, okay, what are some details of the Paleolithic age? What are some details of the Neolithic age? And then we're gonna create our own visuals because we don't have, you know, art from this time that we can look back on. We obviously don't have photographs or anything like that. So we're gonna make our own visual just to kind of help us like situate this time period in our mind. And they each cover like thousands of years. So let's just like get the basics of each of these periods that lasted thousands of years. So I have them just create these posters where they put the Paleolithic age on one side, Neolithic age on the other. And so I've linked a few videos that I think are really helpful. Some have content in them, like this is, you know, day in the life of a Neanderthal, whatever, however we say this, whatever. And then even like, this is a little more advanced, but the John Green video, it's like an animated video to his chapter in the Anthropocene Reviewed about the cave paintings at Lascaux. This is another thing we do. We do like the virtual tour on the Lascaux website, because that just gives us some insight into, you know, what things were like during the Paleolithic age. It just keep it mysterious, because it is a mysterious time and these were mysterious people, and we don't have a lot of hard and fast facts. We've just discovered things. Anthropologists have a lot of theories about things, but we can just kind of be like, all right, here's what we know. Here's some of the evidence. Let's just do what we can with this, but it's not even like we know that many details anyway. So these projects turn out so good, because I also link like how to draw rocks and how to draw farm animals. And they turn out so good. And so I have some examples on the like Teachers Pay Teachers resource that your kids can see. I'll show you some examples from this year, but on one side, they're drawing the Paleolithic age, where people hunted and gathered. They used some tools, but they were mostly like for hunting. They mostly like lived in caves or like natural shelters like that. They were nomadic. And then we draw a line down the middle and we look at the Neolithic age. And this is the introduction of agriculture. This is really important to understand. It is important to me that they get this. So now they have started to plant some of their own foods. They've started to domesticate animals and use them for meat and wool and milk and things like that. And people have started to build little villages so that they can work on this together, this agricultural project, and they live in like huts and stuff like that. So you can see the difference very clearly in these student examples, and they write down little details like explaining what they drew, and this is very cool. And then we, you know, post these in the classroom, and this is our, you know, visual reminder, like, okay, here's the difference between Paleolithic age, Neolithic age. Here's human history so far. Since this occurs at the beginning of the year, this is also when I like to kind of set my expectations for what our art projects are going to be like. So in the instructions, let me see. I always say little to no white space. And then they're like, what about clouds? Like, okay, clouds and eyeballs can be white. Maybe some sheep. But for the most part, we just color everything. We're just going to make everything very detailed. You know, if it's just the sky, just color it blue. If it's the ground, it's grass, just color it green. But we're going to pretty much color the whole piece of paper. It's like a one-pager. The point of making these is for people to be able to read the information. So I don't want you writing super, super tiny or really lightly in pencil. Like if they do, they need to trace over it in like black pen or black marker. And so I've always had this expectation when my kids do like one-pager type assignments, and I just keep giving it back to them until it meets the criteria. And so then they all turn out really good. So this kind of sets the expectation for anytime we do little projects like this throughout the year. So I like to do one kind of early on in the year, and I give them time to get it done. They have like 2 or 3 days in class, and I have little boxes that just have like crayons and colored pencils and markers in there, and I just reuse them like year after year after year. Like they're not great. They have to kind of take care of these supplies, but some of them will bring their own little crayons or colored pencils or whatever, and they can do stick figures. That's fine as long as it's detailed and as long as it, you know, follows the instructions. So this takes them a couple of days, but they turn out great. And this just sort of like situates our knowledge for the beginning of the year, and then we go into ancient Mesopotamia. I have some really great assignments for Hammurabi's Code and for the ancient Assyrians. Those are coming to Teachers Pay Teachers soon. I will get those up and I'll talk you through them. We just got finished with those, so yeah. But anyway, this assignment I think turns out so well. And then like kind of as I'm also teaching this assignment, we look at the research from anthropologists and what we do know. So this is the second assignment, and I think this one is really great as well. And this one is about women during the Stone Age. And so a lot of times when we're looking at like really ancient people, like prehistoric people, we definitely picture them as like following very traditional gender roles. And there's a reason for that. And so we're gonna kind of unpack that a little bit. With just like a quick NPR story that I heard when I was driving home one day. It's like 8 minutes long. It's a podcast. Like they are able to kind of understand and make meaning of this information. We have to break it down. We got to like read through it a couple times in order to understand it. But that's what this second assignment is. And then along with it, I also read this book called Lady Sapiens. It was originally written in French because a lot of the anthropologists like at the top of their fields are French because they have like the Lascaux caves and stuff like that, and so they're close to the research, so it's translated and it's like I always tell my students too at the beginning of the year, I'm like, this is not my wheelhouse, this is not where I am great. Like, I want written records. I am a historian and I do very well with written records, but before that, when all we have are artifacts and like cave paintings and stuff, it's a little more difficult for me. I don't like the ambiguity. I don't like not knowing what people were really thinking and stuff, but you know, we work with what we can. So even reading this book by anthropologists, I'm like, oh my gosh, why would you choose this job where you can like know so few things for sure? And you have to rely on theories, and they rely on like research from modern day nomadic tribes and stuff. So anyway, I like link that book for you as teachers in case you want to understand this profession and this field a little bit more, which I did want to do. It's just, I'm like, oh, man, that's a that's a rough job. So anyway, this story that was on NPR covers like new research that anthropologists are realizing about women in the Stone Age. So they have found like people buried with all of these hunting tools, and they're like, wow, this person must have been an amazing hunter. And now we have the ability to like test their bones and realize that like, oh, this was a woman. And you can kind of tell the age of the woman and like if they had children or not. Because you know, now we have this modern technology. And so they're realizing like, oh, these were women. And for so long, all of the anthropologists were men, and a lot of that research was done like this also, speaking of like monkey's paw, like this is very much impacted by like British colonialism. So as England began to colonize all these places in the Middle East, they were able to go in there and like dig up all of these ancient artifacts and bones and stuff. Actually, the one that they found recently, that researchers found recently, was in Peru. But so much of the anthropology, like historiography, like how it has been studied for the past 150 years, was based on the research by these like British or European men going into well, sometimes in Europe and then sometimes in like the Middle East, but they came from a culture where gender roles were very rigid, and men, you know, they assumed like did all the hunting and all of the dangerous work, and women were like in the homes doing like basket weaving and stuff like that. So they are the ones who assumed that that would be true about ancient or prehistoric women. And so that's what they put into like the literature. And then even when they studied these like nomadic tribes of, you know, more recently, they still had that very like these preconceived like stereotypes in their minds as they did all of their research, and those were the conclusions they came to. So now anthropologists, where we have more women involved in this field now and more non-white people involved in this field now, are able to kind of go back and look at their notes and look at that research and realize like, no, there were a lot of women hunting even in those societies as well. And then they find these artifacts and, you know, these humans who were buried with all of their hunting tools and find that they were women. So the NPR article is like broken down so that it's like nice and short and sweet, so students kind of understand this. And then we have this conversation about why would we view history that way? And, you know, we have to be careful when we're looking back at history not to use our own preconceived notions about things and apply that to people from the past. And we still, always do that a little bit. It's kind of impossible to completely remove yourself from your own context, but this is a really great way to begin the year with that kind of understanding. And I have, these 11-year-old sixth graders, and for the most part, they get that, and they, feel very cool that they kind of like figured that out. Like, oh yeah, they would have, seen prehistoric people that way just because that's the way that their society was. And then we forget sometimes to kind of like just open our minds a little bit more. Like, oh wait, were they really? And we have to continue to research these things that, maybe we already thought were like set in stone, pun intended. And just, look at them again. So I think that assignment is also really important. And so this was the first year I did that one. And there's a cat now. All these animals that I haven't seen before. Did somebody leave their back door open or something? I don't know what's going on. These are not the usual neighborhood cats and dogs. I feel like these are indoor pets that got out somewhere. I'm gonna have to text the group chat. But anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, this was the first year that I did the like Women in the Stone Age lesson, and I wish I had done it before our little art project because I'm sure that would have shown up in their art. So next year I'll be able to do that and kind of see how maybe they'll show some like grandma's hunting or something on the Paleolithic side. So both of those resources are on Teachers Pay Teachers if you want to try them in your classroom. At this point, probably like next year. I'm assuming a lot of people have already covered this content by end of October, which it is right now. But yeah, I feel like now that I have gotten more familiar with this content and I'm not just like, okay, everything's important, let's look at everything. It's much cooler to be able to kind of like zoom in on certain things and then just kind of like, skim other things. And I do feel like my students have a deeper understanding of like the stuff that matters. Like, okay, we see that there was this change from like hunting and gathering to agriculture. All right, we understand this. We also understand that women were hunters as well. We did probably back then there were not very strict gender roles because we had to survive. However, once we get into ancient Mesopotamia and we actually have civilizations, we will see some of those more strict gender roles. I'm reading another book about that. Hold on. This is a good one. It's not completely about that, but it's called The Making of Biblical Womanhood by Beth Allison Barr, who is a historian, and she teaches like ancient civilizations at like the college level. And so she does talk quite a bit about, like the ancient Sumerians, and they did have fairly strict gender roles at that time, but that doesn't mean that they did prehistorically. And her argument is kind of that like that was a thing since civilizations were created, but it's not necessarily how like God would design human beings to be. So I mean this kind of takes like a religious turn. So this is more for like a religion class. This is not necessarily, for your ancient civilization class, but it's very good. It's really interesting. I'm working my way through this one. Another really good history one. Hold on. Just show you the things that I'm reading. This is so good. I need to finish it because I'm loving it. It's called How to Hide an Empire. This was a recommendation from Lauren, who did the Brave History Conference with us, and then Lady Sapiens was a recommendation from Tiffany, who did the Brave History Conference with us. So just always kind of still recommending their resources. We had such great conferences this summer, and I continue to use the ideas of the other presenters from the conference. I learned so much. Side note, but the other really great tip that I got from Alejandro, another one of our presenters, was to offer extra credit, but that extra credit assignment is to say the name of every single person in the class period. So it forces students to like, because extra credit is always so like me, right? Like, what can I do? So this takes those students who want that extra credit and forces them to pay attention to everyone else in their class, and they have to know every single person's name. So the way that I have it set up is like, you can do it at any time. You just have to be the first person to ask me that day. Like as you come in, you gotta be the first person to ask. So only one person can do it per day, because it's kind of not fair. If like a second person would get to do it that day, it'd be like fresh in your head. So one person gets to do it per day. And if you can say everyone's name, you get that extra credit. It's a very simple assignment, but it does kind of pull you up and out of yourself and forces you to notice and pay attention to everybody else in your class. So for my students, that has been a good thing. So, okay, I will link everything that I remember to link down below. If there's something I forgot, just let me know in the comments. Let me know how your year is going. I've been talking too much, I guess. This week we've been doing so much singing with my 7th graders. Oh, I gotta make a video about this. We've been doing like the Joni Mitchell song, Paved Paradise, Put Up a Parking Lot, and then talking about other songs that have a clashing mood and tone. So we've been listening to a lot of music and like singing a lot. That's been very fun. So we'll talk about that. That'll be up next, I think. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me here on YouTube. Sorry I haven't been here as consistently, but I truly, truly appreciate it when you guys take a minute out of your day to stop and, watch a YouTube video and hang out with me for 20 minutes or so. So I will see you in my next one or see you over on Instagram. Hope you're having a great year. Bye.